according to Missing Voices, a coalition of human rights organizations, including Amnesty International Kenya, 128 people were extrajudicially executed by the police in 2022. 2023, excessive use of force by police has come out strongly in the anti-government protest witnessed from March this year that have claimed the lives of 30 people, according to a civil society report. The topic tonight is best practices the police can adapt when handling this protest. And who better to have this conversation than Martin Mavenjina, a senior program advisor, transitional justice at the Kenya Human Rights Commission, and our very own reporter Tracy Ocheng, who has been covering stories on the same. And do make sure to keep the comments coming in through the SMS line 21144 and GBS TV Africa on all our social media handles. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm quite familiar with Tracy Ocheng because you've been working together. I'd like to give you this opportunity, Mr. Mavenjina, to introduce yourself and what you do.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, viewers. I am happy to be here. My name is Martin Mavenjina. I work for the Kenya Human Rights Commission as a senior program advisor for the Transitional Justice Program. And part of my work entails, monitoring and documenting cases of police excesses, including, trying to assist citizens and victims of police excesses to hold them to account. So as an institution, over the years, since our formation in 1992 and registration in 1994, we have a long track history of documenting and, trying to hold police to account. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, over the last couple of years, if you may permit me, since independence, the police has been used by the political elites as a tool of political repression. But in 2010, Kenyans got a new constitution, and the framers of our new constitution envisaged a police service that will serve the people, that as the motto says, utumishi kwa wote. And when you look at the provisions in the constitution, right from Article 243 that establishes the National Police Service, and also Article 244 that provides for the functions of the National Police Service, we envisioned a police that would respect the rule of law, that would discharge their duties professionally, that will respect human rights, that will be of service for all Kenyans. But as you've seen from the documentary that your colleague did here, and based on what has gone on in the last couple of months, that has not been the case. And the police seem not to be deterred, despite the fact that over the last couple of years, we have tried to hold a number of police officers to account. In fact, some of them have been, jailed for, causing unlawful death. But that seems not to have deterred them, despite, a raft of pieces of legislation, right from the Constitution, the National Police Service, the Service Standing Orders. So we have a broad framework of laws that are supposed to enable the police discharge their duties within the confines of the law. But of course, that has not been the case.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I know we're quite aware we have an expert in the room to be keeping us updated. And now, Tracy Ocheng, I feel for us to start this conversation, we should start particularly on Article 37 of the Constitution. Just enlighten us.
So Article 37 of the Constitution essentially grants, now we have to look at this from where it's located. It's located in the Bill of Rights, which means that the state does not grant it to an individual. It is given. That is, the state that cannot grant it, so it cannot take it away from you. So it says that every person has the right to assemble, picket, demonstrate, and present their petitions to authorities. So what we're seeing right now and we're experiencing as we are going on is that this right is constantly being curtailed. That's evident. It's again said, it's evident that it's being curtailed. We had an MP for Mbeere North proposing a bill to actually limit the rights, limit the excess or the farthest to how protesters can go, or citizens can go. Let me not call them protesters. Citizens can go, because essentially this is a right to citizens. And another thing that I am also passionate about and I try to highlight is that under Article 37, it doesn't state that a politician should be leading you to protest. And when you're looking at how the government and the opposition are responding, it's now a fight between the government and opposition, and we have the Kenyans in between. So Article 37 is a fundamental right. That means that the state does not grant it, and so they cannot cannot curtail it. Yes.
Thank you, Tracy. Now, Mr. Martin, listening to Tracy talking about Article 37, I know you're quite familiar with it and you're aware of the situation that is happening. It says that every person has the right to peaceably and unarmed to assemble, to demonstrate, and picket, and to present petitions to the public authorities. Now, Article 37 in terms of adhering to the law, on the recent happenings, how can you describe the situation in the country?
I think the current situation, the best description of what has happened in the last couple of weeks in the country is there's been a drawback on all our constitutional gains. Because when you look at what happened in the last couple of weeks in regards to Article 37, these have been the most serious or the worst violations akin to what happened in 2007. We have seen police officers, discharge their duties with a lot of impunity. There have been, for instance, in Kisumu and Migori alone, there were 22 deaths that were reported. There are over 100 people who were injured as a result of the police response. And in all this conversation, we are seeing that citizens have been denied the chance to actually exercise their Article 37 rights. And what is missing from this whole conversation is the aspect of police accountability. We have not had even one officer arraigned in any court of law, but we are aware that during the protests there were multiple instances of excessive use of force, including live ammunition, that is the use of bullets. And if you look at the National Police Service Act under the 6th JD, paragraph 3 and 4, it clearly stipulates when a police officer can use live ammunition. That is in instance that somebody is escaping from lawful custody or destruction of property. But I must point out that if you look at all the numerous protests that have happened in Kenya, they only turn violent when the police tries to unlawfully disperse protesters. And that is just akin to human nature. And the best example I can give is of the young gentleman in one of Nairobi's suburbs who was caught on live TV, who was actually whisked away by a policeman purporting to be a journalist. And I think you saw it on many media houses. But if you listen carefully to his interview, he was in his house when a tear gas canister was loaded into his house. Now, anybody, even us on set here, if a tear gas canister was loaded right in the middle of the set, you would not expect us to just stay stationary. And that is why you saw him react the way he did. So, protests only turn violent when the police uses a repressive response to them. But if you can permit me to mention something that I think is very important. Before citizens actually enjoy their Article 37 rights, they are required to notify the police as per the provisions under the Public Order Management Act. And what has been, in my experience over the last couple of years, the police has weaponized this act. They have used it as a way of, permitting people to either enjoy this right or not to enjoy this right. And that has been common by the fact that in most instances, they do not want to receive these letters of notification. Today, on Monday, I did, together with colleagues from the social justice centers, we went and tried to submit a notification to the OCS for Central Police Station in Nairobi. We were told to come back for a response today. And I can assure you, I was there from 9:30 to 1 o'clock, and they just would not either accept to receive the response or even give us. So they have used this legal provision they have weaponized the provisions of this act by by refusing to actually receive these letters of notification. And what that does is they use that to actually now tell citizens that because you did not inform us, then you cannot, peaceably assemble, which is actually wrong. Because if you look at it, the act envisions that you need to notify the police, not to get their permission to actually enjoy, to picket or peaceably demonstrate. Yes.
Now, to Tracy, according to Article 10 of the Constitution, the national values and principles of governance. Now, Police seem to be in the center of a political dispute, and do correct me if you feel I'm wrong. Now, do you feel the police have deviated from the role of maintenance of law and order and have been forced to join a certain coalition?
Thank you for that question. That's an interesting question. When we go back to the part one of the policing police that we did yesterday, you'll see that the National Police Service was previously called the KPF, Kenya Police Force. And what the Kenya Police Force was, it was used by the colonists to repress movements. That's why we had a lot of many police being used to limit or to destroy the Mau Mau uprising. So when we're talking about them deviating, according to Article 244 of the Constitution that stipulates their objectives and duties, they're supposed to comply to human standards, fundamental rights, and freedoms. They're supposed to train to the highest discipline their staff, among other provisions. So it's when we see what we're seeing right now, and we link it in comparison, compare and contrast with what the Constitution says and what is being displayed, then it's evident that we have some deviating from their duties. But as Director Elema Halake said, there's some who are errant. Of course, when protests turn into chaos, then it's the work of the police as well to also maintain law and order. So they also come in at that point. But what is the threshold? Where do they draw the line between protecting lives and property and protecting the lives of people? That's why I like what the director said at IPOA, that it's an oversight authority, a civilian oversight authority, that yes, the police should provide security. Yes, the police should be protecting property. They should also protect the protesters and also those who are not protesting. So, of course, we have some errant ones, and that is why that docket is there to be able to weed out the errant ones. But it can really be it's debatable because now we see them acting uniformly. So it's hard to pick who is protecting, who is not protecting. But let's wait for the report by IPOA, and maybe we can be able to talk about it more conclusively.
Tracy, I purposely want you to comment on the police and coverage of the media, how they are interfering. But before we get to that, let me go back to you, Mr. Martin. We have seen police officers are aware there is the law. And they're also aware there is the Kenya Human Rights Commission. They're also aware there is IPOA oversighting them. Then why do they keep violating the law? What leverage do they have?
Thank you for that question. I think what has given the police leeway to commit multiple human rights violations in the last couple of months is, I think, there's just a deeply entrenched culture of impunity within the National Police Service, because when you look at the number of policy and legislative reforms that have strides that Kenya has made as far as the National Police Service is concerned, they're quite commendable compared to other jurisdictions. But and also when you look at the amount of funding that has been allocated towards reforming the police in the last couple of months, it's been quite substantial, including the creation of the internal affairs unit within the National Police Service, to monitor and document cases of excesses, and also by extension the Independent Policing Oversight Authority. But but because of the deepened culture of impunity, the National Police Service, or officers within the National Police Service, seem to have refused to change, even despite the fact that over the last couple of years there have been several convictions for police officers for killing children. We're all aware that baby Pendo died in the post-election violence of 2017. So for unlawful killings, for excessive use of force, for aggravated, all manner of violations. But more importantly, I think there is lack of political will to hold the police to account. You all remember, I think, the week after the Maandamano protests. I think it was a Sunday or Monday, where His Excellency the President was actually commending the police for doing a fantastic job, and that was actually shocking to me, because when you look at what had happened a couple of days ago, and you have the head of government, commending the police for a job well done, then it speaks volumes. We have also seen on live TV, the IG, talking arrogantly, telling people that if you dare protest, then you will see, you will see the other side of the police. So I think there's this deepened culture of impunity whereby the police seem to be, they seem to be discharging their duties with total disregard of key constitutional provisions and also, key statutory provisions. Because when you look at what the Constitution says, it envisions that the police will discharge their duties within the confines of the law, with due respect to human rights. So, but that seems not to be the case. So, I would think, in my honest opinion, it's just, it's the lack of political will and the deeply entrenched culture of impunity. But as CSOs, of course, and of course Kenyans from all walks of life, we will not give up on trying to hold the police to account, because we have progressive courts that have over the years given us progressive decisions when it comes to holding police to account. So we intend to continue pursuing, including of course, including those who committed serious violations in the last couple of weeks. Hopefully, IPOA, the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, will be able to comprehensively conduct an investigation. And of course, as civil society organizations, we have and will continue supporting victims of police excesses, in terms of giving them legal assistance. But what I can say with clarity is that we intend to hold the police to account, because I want to believe that we are all law-abiding citizens and we're all equal before the law. So the police should discharge their duties within the confines of the law.
Thank you so much, Mr. Martin, and you're continuing to give your continuous insights on the same. And now I'm told time is not on our side, and there's a lot to talk about when it comes to this topic that we have in hand. Now, Tracy, just when you're giving also your parting shot, tell us, because when police break the law in the name of enhancing security, they themselves become criminals. What approach needs to be taken for the country to move forward? Just briefly as you give your parting shot.
I think, thank you for that question, Betty, but I don't think I'm the person who is supposed to be answering that question. We've been seeing the Inspector General of Police, he's completely missing in action. And I think as the General of the Police, as the commander of the police service, he should be able to give Kenyans a way forward on what needs to happen. Because then, as for me, I can only speak about how police and media work. And we've seen how the IG would come out with a press release and say, oh, I've just seen on media, in newsrooms, that there's protests. So what does that say about his ability to get intellect? He's a police. He should be getting intel about things that happen in the country. Yes, but an important thing that I'm hoping Martin is going to talk about is some of the best practices that for this, yeah.
Now, giving your parting shot, I'll pose the same question to you. What needs to be put in place to make sure such occurrences don't happen again?
I think the first thing we need to do is we need to hold all those police officers who have allegedly committed any form of human rights violation over the last couple of weeks to account. They must face the firm hand of the law. When you look, so that is the first thing that needs to be done. There must be an aspect of accountability, because people have lost, innocent Kenyans have lost their lives. There are others who are still nursing serious injuries in various hospitals around the country. So there must be that aspect of accountability. The other thing that needs to be done is we must inculcate a culture of a human rights-based approach to policing. Police officers must be able to discharge their duties with due respect to to human rights and the rule of law. The third is the need to. I think there is need for the police to to accept international best practices in terms of notifications. Notifications are a way in which people actually, a notification is a way in which you're supposed to inform the police that you intend to submit a petition. So they must be able to receive petitions are not weaponized this provision, to be used either by them to either accept you to use to exercise your Article 37 rights or not. But more importantly, I think they should we need to have a broader conversation around a complete overhaul of the National Police Service in terms of culture change, because what we have witnessed over the last couple of weeks is a deeply entrenched culture of impunity. So it is my hope that they will be able to discharge their duties within the confines of the law.
Thank you so much, Mr. Martin, for joining this live broadcast, and thank you, Tracy, for your insights.